Welcome to the really useful podcast from makeuseof.com. My name is Christian Cawley and I'm joined by Gavin Phillips. This is the tech podcast for technophobes, in which we bring things that might appear to be complicated, etc., over your head, but seem to maybe have some relevance to your life, and we break them down and make them simpler to understand. In this week's show, we'll be looking at some Windows-related issues that have popped up, some apps that you might have that might be slowing down your computer, a look at Windows Defender, and a new Windows 11 update. We'll also be looking at data recovery and how to get Amazon Prime cheaper. We'll also be looking at a couple of recommendations. I've got one, and Gavin's got one, or he'd better, and we'll be discussing those later and why you should maybe check them out. Gavin, how are you doing?
Yeah, very well, Christian. Looking forward to getting stuck into a good week. And how about yourself?
Pretty much the same. It's Monday morning. I'm feeling surprisingly chipper for the time of day and the day of the week. So
it's always a good sign, off on a good foot.
Yes, well, let's hope so anyway. So let's go into this. Anyway, there are two innocent-looking apps that are slowing down your Windows 11 PC. Now, I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage here because I don't have Windows 11, so I can't really look into this in depth. But we've heard from GHacks. They've compiled several sources across the internet about the chat and widgets effect on Windows 11, and disabling or removing them results in a noticeable improvement in system performance. What's this all about?
It's interesting, actually, isn't it? So I've been using Windows 11 for quite a while, since the very early days of Windows 11 development on the Insider Preview program, which, if the listener doesn't know, it gives you early access to versions of Windows that are yet to release. And so I've not really ever noticed this being an issue. That said, I've never taken the additional steps to remove these things from my taskbar. So now that you've called this to my attention, I think I know exactly what I'm doing after we finish recording.
The report begins by covering an article in Ars Technica, which claims that getting rid of the chat, called Teams in the article, and widget icon from your taskbar can save on RAM, which is due to how they both use Windows processors to work properly. When you use either, Windows 11 uses a process called WebView 2, which gives both processors access to Microsoft Edge without Edge actually having to load. Now, when you put it in that kind of context, that they're kind of relying on the browser, it kind of makes sense, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. If they're competing effectively for the same resource as well. So once they're both going, you're almost doubling the effect on your system, aren't you? I like the fact that the fix for it is incredibly simple as well. And as per the GX article, all you have to do is remove them from your taskbar, which is a fantastically easy fix for a problem, isn't it?
It is. If only all of the fixes in Windows were that easy.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll move on. Microsoft Defender's got a bad rap over the years, and it's the built-in antivirus software in Windows. It first arrived in Windows 7 or Vista.
Yeah, as far back as
there was even
there was basic stuff in Windows as far back as XP, really, wasn't there? Like built-in security features.
Well, they weren't there originally, though, were they? I think they came with an update.
Was it like the third?
Yeah,
second or third pack, update pack that came out. But yes,
like
you're absolutely right.
I remember a very long time ago when Kerry and I, my wife and I before we even got married, first started cohabiting. Sorry if that offends anyone. It shouldn't do in this day and age. But the first time we connected to the internet in the house that we lived in, and within 15 minutes the computer was restarting itself because we were using an unpatched Windows XP. And there was all sorts of viruses and stuff just floating around the internet, getting into computers that weren't patched and just bugging them and causing reboots. As soon as you got the necessary Windows update, that stopped happening. There's very little in the way of system security in those days. Things obviously improved considerably, and now Microsoft Defender, which we call it, not Windows Defender, Microsoft Defender is now an integral part of Windows. It isn't as bad as its previous reputation would possibly lead you to believe. And in fact, I mean, this article aside, which we're going to just discuss in a moment, unless you're visiting some very dodgy websites, you probably don't need an antivirus application these days, I don't think, do you?
No, I don't think you need to spend the big bucks
No.
that a lot of people suggest you do for like a high-tech premium antivirus suite that's got loads of different tools going on. On my computers, I've been running Microsoft Antivirus and another tool, Malwarebytes anti-malware, for which I pay for the premium subscription. And the combination of those two programs keeps everything extremely safe and extremely locked down. And as said, Christian, unless you are visiting, some pretty horrendous websites, you're not really necessarily going to encounter that much bad stuff. I think an important thing to consider, though, is that having a secondary tool like something like Malwarebytes is good for clicking on, say, phishing links in emails and
Yeah.
things like that. So when you try and open that link in your browser, Malwarebytes will pop up and say you don't want to do that, and that
Yeah.
goes, oh, thanks very much. I don't want to do that. Um, so Microsoft antivirus is though very good at blocking you from opening like malicious files. Say you downloaded a file from the internet and it contains malware. Microsoft antivirus is like really good now at saying, yeah, don't do that because it's going to be a bad time.
No, to go into the story, though, AV Tests December 2021 report. That's where it all is. And, they've tweeted it to give us some more information about it. And you can check this out along with everything else that we discussed in this week's show in our show notes. During November and December 2021, they continuously evaluated 20 home user security products using the default settings. You've got everything in this list from Avast Free Antivirus, AVG, Avira, Bitdefender, Bullguard, F-Secure, Kaspersky, all the big names, and even some of the ones that you won't have heard of, are in this list. Microsoft Defender scored 6 out of 6 for protection, performance, and usability. And it wasn't alone in that. There are other applications, Kaspersky, McAfee, Bullguard, Avira. They all scored 18 points in total. So they've all done a really good job. And there's very few of them haven't done a good job, to be honest with you. They're all between 17 and 18 points apart from 2 or 3 of them. If you're interested, they are K7 Computing, 16.5. Microworld eScan Internet Security Suite, you won't have heard of that, 16 points. PC-Matic, again, probably not one you've heard of, 16.5. The rest of them are all really very good, but Microsoft Defender is at the top with the best of the antivirus software for home users, which is really good news because it means you don't have to pay for extra software. As Gavin mentions, there are additional tools that you can use that will enhance your browsing experience and to improve online safety. And none of this really stops you from clicking anything until you've got something like that or downloading an email. I've found using Gmail is really useful to prevent accidental downloads of viruses through email. These days, most scammers, hackers, those guys that send out the malware through email, they don't really use email as attachments. They'll just give you a link in the email, a phishing link, as Gavin describes earlier. But if you are using an email client, there's always that risk. So if you're using an antivirus software that will integrate with your email client, that's a better option.
Yeah, the difference between my Gmail accounts, which I have a few, and my personal account, which I run through Microsoft Outlook, in terms of spam and malicious spam, is night and day. So I can open my regular email account, and I'm sure every listener can attest. You open it and you think, oh, I've got 400 emails, and within a few minutes it's cleared down to the 2 emails that you actually want to read, and the rest of it is like in your spam box.
Yeah.
And clicking through and looking at your spam box as well, you see that it's all the same sort of theme, isn't it? Buy this, click this, take interest in that. And as you said, most of the time it is make sure you click on this link. And that's where you get taken to a phishing portal where the scammers want you to enter your details. So yeah, using something like Gmail is really useful, isn't it? Because it's such good built-in spam protection.
Yeah. How many Gmail accounts have you got?
Quite a few for various
Yeah,
things.
same here.
I've created some over the years as well to host downloaded files for make use of as well. So when I click my little icon, it actually comes up with a list of like 7 or 8 different accounts.
I've heard recently, this is going off our planned discussion though, I've heard recently that accounts that use the G Suite that were given like the free access to G Suite like 10, 11 years ago, they're coming to a close at the end of February.
That is correct. Yeah, they're
Yeah,
going to close and change. I think it was only business ones, wasn't it? But yes, that is all going to change in the next few weeks.
I'm not sure if mine's counted as a business one. I'm a bit concerned. I need to get my finger
No,
out.
how you find out?
I found out through a news report. I don't check the master email account very often because I feel that there's no need to, because I just use it for administrative purposes. So, yeah, I need to look into that. I should be doing that now instead of talking to you, but you know.
We've got lots of important stuff to talk about,
We have
Christian.
indeed. We're back with Windows 11. Windows 11's KB500-8353 update. It is designed to add a major performance issue for systems with solid state drives. Again, I'm going to have to defer to Gavin's superior knowledge of Windows 11 here. Is there a problem with solid state drives on Windows 11?
Well, there have been issues with solid state drive performance on Windows 11. Lots of people, you can find lots of reports online of people noticing after they'd upgraded from Windows 10 to Windows 11 that their read write rates on their drives, that's how quickly the data goes to and from your computer to the hard drive, they noticed that it was significantly slower, and
Wow.
it wasn't just a general feeling of my computer feels a bit slow. There's a lot of actual reports of people measuring the speed pre-update and post-update and finding that their data rates were significantly slower. So it is an issue that has been affecting people that have upgraded.
That's incredible. I'm, I mean, there's obviously been problems with Windows releases over the years. That's the kind of thing that would seem like it would be resolved before it was publicly released.
Well, I mean, I do have to give it to Microsoft in many ways. The jump from 10 to 11 has been significantly more painless than from 7 and 8 to Windows 10,
More
which,
painless or less painful?
what did I say? Less painful, I would say.
Okay.
More painless? There was less pain.
Okay.
But there are still, kinks in the process, and some of the kinks have been quite closely related to performance, like with the SSDs. There was another issue where people running AMD hardware instead of Intel hardware were noticing that their performance was degraded from Windows 10 to Windows 11. So, as you said, you'd think that these were all things that Microsoft would spot in the testing process.
Yeah.
You want to say unfortunate, but there's also a heavy slice of why don't you see these things, Microsoft? Come on.
Yes, you would. I mean, you can there is that whole, if they're testing completely in house, then there's always that excuse that they're not going to see everything because there's no way they could have every single permutation of hardware. But when you've got things like the Insider program, maybe that's when they would spot these things.
I would think so. I thought that was a core reason of why the Insider program started and was rolled out for Windows 10, because it was going to be such a jump from Windows 7 and Windows 8 and 8.1 to Windows 10 that they wanted to catch as many issues for as many hardware permutations as possible. And even then, that was still a massive hoo-ha. And although the jump from 10 to 11 is less significant, we're still having some issues. I want to say they're the same level of issues because, 7 and 8.1 to 10 was just, there were so many problems.
Yeah.
If you look back at make use of in, was it 2015, 2016, a lot of our Windows coverage at the time was solely on fixing issues for people that had upgraded.
Yes.
And we definitely haven't had that same level of issues fixing with the Windows 11 update.
So the details for that is basically you need to just check for an update or wait for the update to download and apply, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a regular Windows update. It will appear in Microsoft's update whenever it appears, and you just update as usual. It doesn't require anything special. You click Restart Now once it appears in Windows Update, and jobs are good 'un.
Excellent. We're going to move on now to a look at data recovery and how it works. If you've, which is convenient enough given we've just been talking about solid state drives. If you've ever lost data, you probably know this is a massive pain. Now, there are tools that you can use to recover your lost data, but how does data recovery actually work? Gavin, who joins me on this week's Really Useful podcast, you've probably noticed, has explained this in a superb article for Make Use Of. And so how does it work? What's going on there?
Well, I think the core part of understanding data recovery is understanding what happens when you hit delete. And so the feeling of you hit delete and the file is gone. That's not actually entirely what happens, especially on a regular hard drive. So you hit delete and the file disappears from your screen. But in reality, on the hard drive, the data relating to the file is still there. So until another piece of information comes along and is written over the top of it, there's still a chance that you could go back and recover that file. Now, the data recovery process differs between how long it was deleted, how you delete it. If the drive is, say, damaged or other sort of issues like that. But the long and the short of it is you can recover your data if you act quick enough.
I have vast gigabytes of recovered data. I found that one of the things that data recovery software doesn't do great is reorganize your data, particularly free recovery software. It doesn't reorganize your data as it was, or if it does, it doesn't give you the original names. It gives you just like a numerical string as the name and possibly even the wrong file extension. So you have, in many cases, you have to go through each file, which is largely impossible because there's so many files involved. Like if you've got a crashed hard drive, you recover everything from it. That's going to include the operating system, and you don't need those files anymore in most cases.
No, absolutely. Figuring out what's useful data and what isn't useful data is really, really difficult. Some of the free options do it better than others. But yeah, as you said, I mean, it depends on how much data you're going for as well. So I've had a few occasions where I've only needed to recover a few hundred gigabytes of data, and that comes back and it's quite neatly packaged. And if it's just one or two folders, you know exactly what's going to be in there, don't you?
Yeah.
But a much larger amount of data becomes much more difficult to sort through. You can go for the paid options, paid software, but can be quite expensive, especially the really good ones. The free options, like you said, will recover your data, but you could then end up spending hours figuring out what you've actually got back.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one thing you can do is kind of just like judge it based on file sizes and stuff like that.
So the other thing as well is sort of the expense that can come with it if you need physical data recovery. Have you ever had to do that?
No, I'm too
So I've
tight.
got, yeah.
I'm from Yorkshire. I do it myself.
Yeah, I've got a stack of 4 or 5 old hard drives that are broken in various ways,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm fairly sure the data is still recoverable on them. And I'm waiting for the day that physical data recovery becomes much cheaper, because I
Ah,
think it would cost thousands of pounds to recover the data from them. So even though data recovery software is accessible to most people, if you actually need physical data recovery, i.e., you have to send your hard drive or solid state drive off to a specialist, you're still going to be looking at quite an expensive outlay.
yes, absolutely. Yeah, it can prove to be extremely expensive. So that's why I prefer to just use tools that you can buy. But I suppose those with physical issues, it's a different ball game, isn't it? You do need, as you say, you do need to get a third party involved whose speciality is damaged hardware.
Yeah, so we do have a guide on Make Use of, about how you can attempt to repair a dead hard disk drive to recover your data. It is, I would say, fairly advanced,
Does it
but
involve putting it in the freezer?
I don't think it does.
Thank goodness for that.
Is that a trick? Is that a tip
That
that we all
used to
need to
be
know?
actually there is actually a mention of it. But it used to be a trick back in the day that you would put it in the freezer, which would cause the metal to contract. So if the head was stuck, it would release. But it's one of those things that maybe works about 2 times out of 10. So
Yes, and I guess if you are going to do that, the key thing is to remember to wrap it up.
yes,
Don't just put your hard drive straight in the freezer. Wrap it up, make sure it's completely airtight.
you don't just put anything in the freezer. Everything has to get wrapped up in the freezer, doesn't it? Apart from ice cubes. So
That's true. That's true. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely.
how do you feel about getting Amazon Prime cheaper? There's a
Well,
trick you can do, uh, which Patrick Kariuki has explained and make use of. And, because Amazon's raising its price of Prime in the US from $119 to $139, that's a $20 increase. But there's a way that American Amazon Prime subscribers can get around this by buying and sending themselves a gift of Prime membership at the current price. I feel like Amazon, if they don't already know about this, then they're going to stop it very soon. So
yeah, exactly.
if you want to do this and your Prime's coming to an end very soon, get on this exploit now. You head over to the Gift of Prime page on Amazon and buy a full Prime membership for the current price of $119. You still have to pay the taxes on top. Then you send the gift to yourself. Then you leave the email there. Then you head to the Prime memberships under your account and turn off the auto renew option so you don't get bumped up to the $139 price. Then when your current membership expires, activate your self-gifted Prime membership. And just like that, you get to stay on the $119 rate for an extra year. As we say, that's probably something that's going to end very soon. So take the opportunity to, in fact, we'll even let you pause the podcast, go and do it now, and then unpause us for the next part.
Yeah, when there's a loophole, you got to do it, haven't you?
Yeah, and do it
Especially when it comes to
fast.
things like Amazon Prime, you got to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. You join us now on the section of the show in which we look at our individual recommendations. This basically means something that we've done or experienced over the past week, or maybe 2 weeks, depending on when Gavin or Ben last appeared on the show. And then we share it with you because we think you might be interested, or take a look at it yourself or whatever. No, usually what happens is that I end up going first. Gavin, who's going first this week?
We could do rock, paper, scissors if you like.
Okay. After 3, 1, 2, 3. What have you got?
I've got a fist, a rock.
Oh, I've got scissors. Oh
Ah,
no. Okay.
darn it.
Every time. So there is a game called Millie and Molly. It's just come out on the Nintendo Switch last week. Now, it's not an expensive game. It's a great game for kids. It's kind of like a platform puzzler sort of a thing. And it's about two little girls who tidy up monsters, basically. And there's 100 levels set across 5 themed worlds. It's a relaxed, casual puzzle game. It has a unique rewind undo feature, and it has 8-bit and 16-bit graphics modes and a relaxing retro soundtrack on the Switch. Now, the reason I bring this to your attention is, as regular listeners may know, I have a bit of a thing about retro gaming. This game was initially released on the Commodore 64. And I'm not talking like 30 years ago. I'm talking like a couple of years ago. Because there is still a Commodore 64 development community. And games are still released on the Commodore 64. And what's happened with this one, it's been picked up by Thalamus. Thalamus Digital, which is the modern incarnation of an old Commodore 64 development company called Thalamus. And it's been released on multiple platforms, including now, thanks to Thalamus, the Nintendo Switch. You can get Millie and Molly on the App Store and on Google Play. Although, actually, I think I might be right in saying the Google Play version vanished, but you can still get it for Android and other methods. But it's just really such a cool, sweet game. My little girl, my 5-year-old, has been playing it, and she's absolutely loving it. It's developed by Carlton Handley, who worked on various games back in the day on the C64. But seeing this game on a 8-bit computer platform, then kind of taking on a new life and moving on to other platforms is really quite amazing, especially that it's a modern game that's created on old hardware.
Yeah, it looks really nice. I must admit, I'd not heard of it until you sent me the link through earlier, Christian, but I've taken a look at it and watched some Let's Plays on YouTube, and it looks really good. It's got that really nice, like you said, retro platformer vibe. The puzzles don't look overly difficult, and I guess that suits because it is definitely aimed at children, and it just looks like a really good little fun game.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we've had a good time with it so far. I'm not sure how far my daughter's got through it. Think further than me. I've only managed to get to level 10 so far.
Well, that's often the case. Quickly outpaced by the youth.
Yes, absolutely. So that's my recommendation. The link to that is in the show notes. Obviously, there'll be a link to the Switch version, but if you want to explore that further, by all means do so. What have you got, Gavin?
So this week, Christian, I've got a universal USB high-resolution portable DAC, which is a digital analog converter. This is a absolutely minute bit of kit, as it is a USB DAC. So rather than a bit of hardware that lives on your desk and you plug your headphones and your microphone into it, this is designed to plug straight into your smartphone.
Oh, right.
And so that comes with, it's made by Periodic Audio. I should mention that. It's called the Periodic Audio Rhodium. And it's got a USB Type-C to 3.5mm headphone jack lead. It also comes with a regular USB-C to USB Type-A converter, and USB Type-A is the old school, the big blocky one.
Yeah.
And the long and the short of it is, you take this tiny bit of kit, you plug it into your smartphone or your computer, and it makes your music sound magically better. It's quite incredible. So it has the power to basically upscale your music to a different level. So if you were listening to something that sounded a bit rubbish, a bit pants, couldn't hear it quite properly, you plug this little bit of technology in, and it just magically boosts up all the levels, increases the sound quality, and makes everything sound better. It's quite hard to describe in terms of it being obviously an audio product, and I'm talking about it, and obviously audio is subjective, but it's one of those things where you plug it in and you suddenly go, wow, why haven't I been using this for years? Why hasn't this been in my life before? Because using it, especially with something like a smartphone, for example, which they don't always have the best audio outputs. I mean, there are really good these days, but they don't always have the best. So plugging this tiny USB DAC in suddenly makes it, yeah, so much better. It's quite brilliant, I must say.
Wow. And where did you get this from?
I got this on the internet. It costs around $50 roughly. You can find them on Amazon direct from Periodic and various other retailers, and they are well worth a look. There are other options, portable USB DAC options available. This is definitely one of the best ones I've ever used.
Excellent. Okay. So check that out if you want to improve the quality of the audio on your mobile device. Will it work on a PC as well, did you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's got a USB Type C to USB Type A
Yeah.
converter. You could plug it straight into your PC as well.
Excellent. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this week's really useful podcast from makeuseof.com. Everything that we have discussed, recommendations, tips and guides, and the news at the beginning of the show, you will find in our show notes. Until next time, it's goodbye from us.